Okay, so good morning everyone. My name is Caroline Siddell and I'll be leading on this webinar this morning with Sarah Steele from Better with Money, and we've got a brilliant morning for you here. Just to give you a bit of background, I'm Managing Director of Via Vita Health. I used to be a PE teacher and assistant head for 10 years. I left teaching about 8 years ago to set up Via Vita Health. So we are a corporate wellbeing company. We go into companies across the UK and globally, and we deliver both on-site and online wellbeing programs. I've got a varied background in terms of presenting, keynote speaking, and writing lots of different resources, all about health and wellbeing for the Olympic Games. I'm also an ambassador for the Kelly Holmes Trust and have mentored many different athletes to support with their mental health over the years. So this morning, I'm going to take you through the current climate of wellbeing and mental health in the workplace, some top trends for you to think about back in your organisation, and how you can build a resilient workforce. I'm then going to hand over to Sarah, who's going to talk about financial wellness and how you can support your employees. So a key thing that I'd like you to think about throughout this session this morning is, where is your organisation with its workplace wellbeing journey? So just think in the back of your minds, where are you now? Maybe where do you want to get to by the end of 2022? And then what can you see going forward after that? So I'm going to start off by sharing with you some kind of key stats and facts that are out there at the moment. And the first one is that actually many people are considering changing their job roles. So 48% of workers will consider changing their job roles in 2022. It's the big resignation, isn't it? And employee retention is at the forefront of everybody's minds in no matter what workplace you're in. So something that you really do need to think about is how you can retain your employees. And wellbeing plays a very large part in that. So we've heard about the Great Resignation. It's also hard to recruit at the moment and to attract talent as well as retaining it. Now, it used to be that flexibility in the workplace, so maybe working from home or having various different job hours, that used to be the differentiator. But that is no longer, because we've shifted since COVID into this hybrid world. So we've got to think differently. We've got to think differently about how we can support employees. How can we get them to stay in your organisation? And wellbeing can be a fundamental part of that. Another key thing coming out is that actually sitting is the new smoking. So people have been walking less, commuting less. So with that daily commute having gone or reduced significantly, people are not walking or using public transport as much. We are at home sitting for more hours than we would previously. So it's, how do we get people to build in that physical activity daily and regularly? How can we support employees who are going back into the workplace, then managing their work-life balance? So there's lots of implications, and it is coming out that actually physical activity is something we really need to improve on. So sitting is the new smoking is another thing that is coming out at the moment in stats. Some top employee wellbeing risks then from various different data sources are saying that, again, physical activity is a big employee risk up there. Job security, people have been worried about their jobs, they want to feel secure. Also, staffing levels are a big worry. We know that. I've mentioned retention already, and the high pressures of working environments. And you'll find that because people are moving now into this hybrid world where they're going back into the workplace, going back to meet people, they're finding that actually they're getting less work done on those days. Because when you're working from home, you're spending a lot more hours at your desk doing actual work rather than building in your travel time to go to meetings or to go to work, and then the fact that you'll be, when you're at work, you're having conversations with people again. So people's work time is actually reducing, and then it's making them feel more stressed because they're having to pick up work at different times. So we're finding this shift at the moment where, where work levels are quite tricky and it can cause stress. So the causes of work-related stress, on here, then it shows that workloads, volume of work is up there. That is what's causing work-related stress. Management style. We've also got COVID-related anxiety. So that is going back into the workplace, the commute. And then we've got various relationships that can also hinder are work-related performances and stress. So as an organisation then, what's the answer? What can you do? It's about being human. It's about being sensitive to the needs of people, and that actually we've got to show empathy, and we've got to understand what do our staff and employees need and want. How can we get on their level and understand their challenges, and how can we support them? So we might need to be innovative in the workplace. We'll need to be agile and flexible and be able to support them. And we need to, most importantly, engage with them. And engagement has been the trickiest thing since COVID and beyond, because you're engaging with a workforce who are predominantly remote. And how do we do that as effectively when, compared to when people are in the workplace? So we've got to think about communications and having a solid communication plan when you're talking about well-being. Now let's look at well-being as a whole. The best thing to do for any organisation is to work in the health, prevention and management space. So on this graph here, you'll see to the right-hand side, we've got health reaction in the red column. Now, that is when somebody has gone off work, they've gone off sick. There's only a small amount of actions that we can do. That's the arrow at the bottom, and the cost of those actions is really high. That person's gone off sick, we can't engage with them, we can't support them that much because they've already gone off sick. And actually whatever we do is going to cost a lot of money. Whereas if we, as a workforce, are managing people's health and preventing people from going off sick, there's loads of actions we can do. We can be super proactive, and the cost of those is relatively small compared to if someone's gone off sick. So as a workforce, as a workplace, what we need to try and do is make sure that we're managing people's health and well-being and being preventative, okay? So those are the spaces that we need to work in. How can you do that? It's about having a solid well-being approach. Now, this is our approach. It works with every single organisation we go into, and it works brilliantly. The first thing then is to consult with your employees. So understand, what are their wants? What are their needs? What are their drivers? What are your challenges? What are your demographics? So you do a consult phase, understand your business, understand your challenges, know what the key kind of challenges are in terms of stress, in terms of well-being. What do people want? Understand them, ask them, talk to them, run surveys, have a focus group, set up a wellbeing committee. Consult, really important. Then you can move on to the create phase. You can create your wellbeing program, and there's loads of different things that you can do. And you create your best fit program for your staff. Then you go on to the engagement stage. This is that comms part that I mentioned, and I'll talk about it in a bit later. But this is where you've got to engage with your workforce, because they need to know about what's happening. You can have the most brilliant workplace wellbeing program, but no one knows about it. So you've got to engage with your staff, and that comes down to communication. So it's about engagement, then it's about analysing. How's your wellbeing program going? Is what you're putting on offer being taken up? What are the participation rates? What's the feedback? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is what you're putting on fit for purpose? Does it work for that organisation? Does it work for your staff? If it doesn't, let's change it. So you've got to make sure you analyse, and some of it can be trial and error. You can try something out, change it the next month if it's not working. Then you go back to the beginning of it again. So it might be every 6 months or every quarter, you consult with staff, you find out where they are. That can help shape the programme and direct you for the next quarter. So this can be a continuous kind of wellbeing approach loop. And then once you've got your approach and you've spoken to staff, then it's about thinking holistically. And there's so many things out there that you can do. Wellbeing is a massive area, which is really exciting, but actually you need to be strategic with it. So think what is going to work for your workforce. And there's lots of things you can support people with in terms of family, exercise, nutrition, resilience, rewards, your managers, goals, achievements, setting challenges, positivity, career. So there's lots of things. We do need to think holistically, and you do need to be strategic. So what are the top 2022 wellbeing trends? I'm going to take you through the top 10 that are coming out at the moment, and then I'm going to give you some answers about how you can tackle them. So the first one then is creating that holistic approach to employee wellbeing. So anyone we speak to at the moment, they do need support with their physical health, they do need support with their mental health. And one of the fundamental things that has been missing is connections, so that social wellbeing element. So we need to try and work out how you can do that. And a way to do it is by having pillars of wellbeing for your wellbeing strategy. And we also are finding at the moment that you have to have a combination approach of on-site and online wellbeing support. Some clients will need it on site. So we work with various hospitals and they want it on site. They want people to come in and motivate them and inspire them and engage them. However, other companies, tech companies, are going, no, we don't want anyone on site. We want everything online. So you've got to have that varied approach now. The second thing, making sure that you've got a mental health plan in place. And I'm going to take you through this later about what you should have in place for mental health. But you do need to have something there, whether it's a policy, whether you've got mental health first aiders, whether you've got ambassadors or wellbeing champions, and whether you're training managers, you need to have some framework or something in place for mental health in the workplace. You've also got various apps out there that you can use as well. The third trend is that attracting and retaining talent again. It's that retention, isn't it? We want to try and reduce people going off sick. We want to try and reduce your churn and attrition. So we need to make sure that you are retaining your talents. And how are you going to do that? By having a really good, strong culture and also benefits program in place. The fourth thing is that fostering belonging, inclusivity and engagement. And that's where it comes back to that shift. We're getting back into the workplace more. We can connect with people again, that social well-being element. People want to feel like they belong. They don't want to feel like they're remote and they're on their own within the workplace. So it is working out a way to maybe put on challenges or to have a program that does engage everybody. The fifth thing on here then is that fatigue. People are tired. They're tired from the pandemic. It's actually exhausted people. And the thing that's come out this year, and one of the most popular things, is actually tackling burnout and pandemic fatigue. So we've been delivering webinars on them and supporting employees with that, you know, work-life balance. Moving on then, we've got mindsets, resilience and self-care. This is something that's always apparent, always really important. Building resilience, giving people those tools and resources so they can get through adversity. Who knows what life is going to throw us next in the next couple of years? We've had the pandemic. We never thought we were going to have that. And we need to build people up again to build resilient. They can face adversity, face challenges. And also it's important to take time out and have some self-care. That links on to the whole work-life balance. People have been struggling with working from home and knowing the boundaries between work life, home life, family life. You know, people have been, you know, shifting their working patterns probably around children or maybe supporting, you know, the elderly, supporting parents. So it's, you know, things of work and life is blended more into one. And it's actually, how do you have that work-life balance when you're working at home in a hybrid world? So it's thinking about that. Another thing that's coming out is personal wellness. Now you'll see that if you sign up to benefits magazines, you'll see all these top companies who've got this fertility program or this menopause support program or supporting families and carers. So again, companies are having to think, actually, how can I really support my staff and my employees in a holistic way? It's not just about the well-being. It's not just about the financial side. We've got to think about everything here. So people who are struggling with fertility, have something to support them. Menopause, families, they're more likely to stay and work for you if you are providing them with this kind of support. The next one then is that connecting social well-being. Links to ones I've mentioned earlier is that, you know, we don't want people to feel isolated or lonely. So it is about seeing what you can provide in terms of getting the community together again, whether it's team building, whether it's fun events, but have that element of fun in a workplace. Number 9, I'm not going to talk too much about because brilliant Sarah will talk about it soon in terms of financial health and wellness, and she'll talk about all about the trends and the place of it and what you can do. And the final thing here then is that physical fitness. People need to be up and about and moving. We don't want smoking to be that, you know, to be sitting as a new smoker. We don't want that. So what can you do? Online, on site, various apps. How can you get people up, active and making them feel better? And, you know, physical activity is the best medicine, isn't it, for mental health and for lots of different diseases. So it's really important that we foster that within a work environment. So let's now look at then this 360 approach. So I've talked about various trends, but actually the key here is if you've got a wellbeing program, how are you going to engage people? And you can have a number of things in place. First thing, have a wellbeing calendar for the year. You can look at it quarterly, you can look at it for the year. Pick out the key awareness days, and we've got copies of calendars you can have. So pick out the key awareness days and decide as a workforce, as a company, as a wellbeing committee, or as your group of champions, what are the days that you want to celebrate? And it might be one a month, it might be one a quarter. Be strategic with it. So think, if physical activity is a problem in your workplace, maybe you're going to look at National Fitness Day in September, or Restart a Heart Day. Maybe there's men's health, women's health, International Men's Day, International Women's Day. There's various things. There's Know Your Numbers Week, Mental Health Week, World Sleep Day. There's lots of things you can tie different campaigns into. Then it's about thinking how you're going to provide your wellbeing support, whether you're doing workshops, webinars, on-site, online, group sessions, one-to-one sessions, physical activities or educational. You do need a combination of everything. Then it's about having digital wellbeing. So if you're having a calendar, think about having a theme every month. It might be sleep, it might be relaxation, it might be friendship, connections, mental health, resilience, immunity. And then have some resources for employees. If you've got an intranet, you can post things on there. If you've got big screens in your workplace, or if you have emails, you can send emails out, but have some content, whether it's fact sheets, whether it's short bite-sized videos, because you'll find that some people will want to watch a video, but they won't want to attend a group session. Other people will want to go to a webinar, but they won't want to read something. So you've got to make sure that actually you're tackling and having a 360 approach to wellbeing. And then have challenges. Organizational challenges are great. Photo challenge, really simple, really easy. Everyone loves doing it, something people can get involved in, and then you give them a prize. And that's going to start fostering that environment. They feel good, they feel happy, and it's a fun thing to do. And you need a communication plan. So work out internally and externally your comms plan. So identify all the comms channels, whether you've got portals, whether you've got apps, emails, big screens, posters, you name it. Look at your comms plan. It might be that you've got managers, meetings, briefings, town halls, toolbox talks, newsletters, and then work out how often you can send out communications, because that will be fundamental to your engagement. So that's a quick tour on actually how you can engage with your workforce in terms of wellbeing. Now what I'm going to take you through then is mental health in the workplace. So let's understand more at the moment and what the current context is. So we know that it's prevalent. Everybody has mental ill health or mental health. The most common problems are anxiety and depression, and about 1 in 10, 8 to 10 people are diagnosed with a mental health disorder. Now, what MHFA England say is that if somebody is experiencing a mental health problem for 2 weeks or more, they need to get help. It doesn't mean they've got a diagnosed problem, but if someone's feeling sad or down or not okay for 2 weeks, then they really do need to access some form of help. The problem is, we know that people don't openly talk about it. They don't access EAPs. They won't contact even friends or family for over a year sometimes. So we need to understand how we can break those walls down and how we can support people within the workplace. And it is your job as an employer to support your staff with mental health. If you look at the average UK employee, how many hours they spend at work a week, how many hours they spend a year, and in terms of a lifetime, you definitely do bear some responsibility. So it's about understanding how you can do that. If you don't support people with physical health, mental health, what's going to happen to your workforce? They won't concentrate. They'll take time off sick. They might have poor relationships with your managers, with your customers, with colleagues, with clients. Decision-making skills will be low. They won't feel happy. So there's huge impacts if we don't support people with their mental health. And there is a place for all these campaigns. I'm sure you've seen lots of them. You've got Time to Talk Day, World Mental Health Day. It's okay not to be okay. Speak up, speak out. You're not alone. These campaigns are great, and there is a place for them. But sadly, there is still these, stats out there showing us that even though we run these campaigns, people still believe that talking about a mental health problem in the workplace might damage their career. And, you know, we've also got stats out there to show that line managers want support, but actually only 13% have received any training, which is crazy at the moment. You know, we really do need to address this. So I definitely recommend having managers training in there. And like I said earlier, 70% of people who experience a mental health problem, they don't tell their friends or family or colleagues how they're feeling. So keep doing these campaigns, keep breaking down that stigma, but we've also got to support those with other mechanisms in terms of mental health. And this is now where it comes in the best practice. The best practice is for you to have a mental health policy or strategy in place. It doesn't have to be a separate mental health policy. You can have an overarching health and wellbeing policy. Mental health can feed into that. You also will want a separate safeguarding policy and health and safety policy. So it's about understanding where you are, looking at your current policies. Have you got something in place to support mental health and wellbeing? Senior leaders need to buy in here. They need to role model behaviour. So it's important that they understand the importance of it. You've got to have some form of mental health training. Mental Health First Aid England, they suggest you've got to have 10% of your workforce trained. That's not everybody trained in the 2-day. You've got the 2-day course, the 1-day course, a half-day course. So look at your 10% that need to be trained and work out how many you could put through the 2 days, how many you could put through the 1 day, and how many then you could put through the half day. But you do need some form of mental health training. And then it's not just a tick box exercise. It's not just going, okay, we've trained them, brilliant, that's it, we're done. You've then got to work out how to support them. Those people need regular support, whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly. How are you going to share to the rest of your workforce that you've got these trainers, you've got these ambassadors? How are you going to utilise them within the workplace? That's the fundamental part. Now, wellbeing champions are brilliant, absolutely brilliant. In some of the companies we've worked in, they are critical. They can change the culture. They can get feedback. They can talk to people like you won't be able to. So it's about using them and training champions. They can be brilliant in promoting your wellbeing program. So I highly recommend that you have them in place, no matter what workforce or what company you've got, have them in place. Other things you need are some form of digital or face-to-face care, whether it's counselling, an EAP service, or a mental health platform or app, giving people that service. They do need somewhere. EAPs are highly underutilised, but you do need something in place. If it's not an EAP, you need some form of support that people can access. Educate people, support them with resilience, give people those tools so then they are going to overcome adversity in a better way. So educate your employees, give them that training, give them the resilience training, educate them and give them awareness about mental health. There's various platforms out there. So there's, you've got Calm, you've got Headspace, if you want people to practice meditation or relaxation. And finally, then it's about the regular comms. And this is what I mentioned earlier with the engagement. Have wellbeing bubbling under the surface all the time. Don't slack off from it, but be strategic with it. So whether you have something every other month, that's great. It's regular, people know it's coming. Or every month you're going to send something out to people, or have a Wellbeing Wednesday or a Mindful Monday. There's various things that you can do, but make sure it's bubbling under the surface. You have that calendar and you don't leave it to go to rest. So have it bubbling, make sure you've got something which is strategic and which is going to support your employees in the right way. And that will come through initiatives, regular comms, and that peer-to-peer support. So those are my kind of top tips in terms of mental health best practice. Now I'm going to finish off then with building that resilient workforce. And this really is just bringing together what I've spoken about already in this session. So it's about having a resilient workplace, workforce, and the work that you do. And what we've been in is, we've been in this culture of COVID for the last couple of years. We've been having to be in this survival mode where we've just cracked on, maybe not thought about the future too much, but dealt with the situation in hand, survival, firefighting, let's get through it, not really taking a breath. We've then gone through the recovery stage where actually we've learned some things and learned that things can work differently. And we've learned some things from COVID that we probably wouldn't have put in before. Look at the world going to this hybrid model. We would never have done that before. But actually, we can learn some really great things from COVID, and that's brilliant. Now we're coming out the other side, and it's time to actually pause, think about where you're going as a company, what you want to do with your employees, how you want to support them, and so you can thrive, they can thrive. So it's kind of preparing for the next normal, and that's where we are now. Now, there's some brilliant information out there that you can access, and Deloitte has put a very large document together about workforce strategies for a post-COVID recovery. But there are some little gems in there that you might take away. And the one that I think I picked out was actually, it's building workplace resilience. It's about having that purpose. So what is your purpose? What's your new purpose? Because your purpose may have changed now. Have you got new company values? What are you all working towards? And how does wellbeing fit into that? So what is your purpose going forward? Take perspective now, be strategic, look at where you are, where have you been, what have you learned, where are you heading to, and where can you move from now in terms of wellbeing? And then work out your potential. What do you want employees, individuals, teams, and your organization to achieve in terms of wellbeing? And you can use this with anything. So purpose, potential, perspective were the three things that I picked out, which I thought were really useful. So in terms of building resilience then, this is just going through and embedding and getting you to hear what I've been saying this morning. It's about having things in place to support your employees. Professional resilience. How can people move from their careers? Can they move on? What have they got to attract them, to hold them there? What are they working towards? How can you train them effectively and support teams effectively? Physical resilience, that might be working habits, Zoom-free days, exercise classes, systems that support with rewards, workshops, information. You've got psychological resilience, that's the emotional support with the mental health, EAPs, mental health training, supporting the managers. We've got that social resilience, that fun element, connecting with others, having that calendar, having that engagement plan, coffee mornings, events, team building. And then finally, we've got the financial resilience, making sure you support employees at this crisis time is much needed. So you can build resilience within your organization in a number of ways. And so here then are my final top tips to take away, which again, is nothing new to what I've already said. It's just revisiting and giving you the things and tips that you can take away from today. The first thing, go back and revisit your wellbeing strategy, that consult phase. Have a framework, pillars of wellbeing, have a brand name for your wellbeing program, complete an audit, talk to people. What do they want? Because it might have changed from a couple of years ago what they want. You might have to rewrite your workspace policy with this flexible hybrid working. Have you got your mental health policy? Have you got a health and wellbeing policy? Is it in line with everything else? Is it up to date? Have that strategic calendar. You've got now, look at the next 6 months towards the end of 2022. What do you need to work on as a workforce? Have topics each month, have content each month, have activities on site or online. So have that calendar ready and raring to go. Book in resilience training, mental health training, and support your managers as well as having those champions. Have that consistent digital comms, whether it's emails, whether it's content on any platforms that you've got. But make sure you have that wellbeing bubbling under the surface all the time and people know about it, shout about it. Remember to have different options, as well as one-to-one options, have group options, connect and engage with your employees on site and online, listen to what people want. And finally, the big thing, it is that communication at all levels. You've got to communicate with people, get them on board, engage with them. Thank you so much for listening to my part this morning. Final message from me is that, through doing lots of research and working with companies, is that actually employees want to feel like they care. They want senior leaders to feel like they care about them. So how can you do that in your organization with wellbeing and just make them feel loved and cared about? Because ultimately that's going to mean that they're going to stay and work for your organization for longer. I'm happy to talk to any clients. If you are a partner or if you're an organisation, happy to book in a strategy call with you. My email address is there. More than happy to talk through, understand where you are as an organisation, give you top tips and guidance and actions so you can help prioritise where you are for the remainder of this year. So feel free to get in touch. I'm now going to stop talking, hand over to Sarah, who will talk to you about financial wellness.
Thanks, Caroline. That's perfect. Right, let me just share my screen and we will get going. Okay. I think we're there. Perfect. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Sarah Steele and I'm the Head of Financial Wellbeing for Better With Money. Now, Better With Money started back in 2016 because that was the time that we really identified there was a gap in the market for really good quality, independent financial education through the workplace, really to give employees the tools and knowledge they need to understand their personal finances. Now, the importance of that is that we've got no products to sell, just a mission to educate as many people as we possibly can about money to give them better financial futures. So to just explain why we do this is really building on some of the stuff that Caroline spoke about just now. So let's take a step back, and I just want to look at some research that was carried out in June 2020 by the Money and Pension Service. And what they found was that nearly 2/3 of adults in the UK feel stressed or anxious about money regularly, and about 1/4 of us worry about money every single day. If we look at the ability to just afford our essential bills, it's said that about 1/5 of us struggle to just pay the rent and the utility bills every single month. And we've got about the same amount of people, about 1/5 of people in the UK that have less than £100 in savings, which means when things get difficult, when we have a cost of living crisis like we've got at the moment, there's no buffer for those emergencies. So that just adds to the money worries. Now, really worryingly, that research also showed that on average, people struggle for around 2 years with money and debt problems before they reach out and seek help. You know, we're notoriously bad in the UK for talking about money and opening up. But when people do reach out, they said that the stress about money did lead to physical or mental illness and time off work. And of course, you know, if you're feeling too ill to go to work and then you have time off, you then start to worry, is my job at risk? Am I going to lose it? And you get into that vicious downward cycle and the money's increase. Now, I know from my own experience of doing this role for many years that the heartache that's caused by money issues certainly doesn't confine itself to one generation. It doesn't matter whether you're young, whether you're old, where you are in your career. And actually, sometimes people that are further on in their career with a good job and salary are just as likely to have those money worries as a younger person just starting out. You know, and that's hardly surprising when through school we weren't taught to budget, how do credit cards work, and all those other financial basics that we need. And most of us just muddle through and learn on a need-to-know basis. So in a nutshell then, not only do money worries cause a huge amount of stress for people, it is the biggest known stress of workplace absence, which is why more and more employers are now looking at how they can give their employees the tools, the knowledge to really feel in control of their money and to support them through these economically challenging times. You know, the amount of time that we spend at work that Caroline went through, this really is the responsibility of the employer. And, you know, this has become even greater in recent times, first of all with the pandemic and now with the cost of living crisis that we're going through. But often when we're talking, the terms financial well-being and financial education, they're used interchangeably. So I just wanted to separate what the two mean. Firstly, financial well-being, what it's not about having a high salary or lots of material things. Financial well-being is about feeling in control of your money so that you've got enough money to do the things that you want to do, you know, not worrying about how am I going to cope with these unexpected costs. So financial well-being is really about feeling confident and having that resilience for whatever life throws at you. Financial education then is giving people the tools and the knowledge in order to help them feel in control of their money and in order to be financially resilient, because if they've got that, then they achieve that financial well-being. Now, there was a recent survey that was carried out by Aon, and that actually showed that 2/3 of employees would like to receive financial education in the workplace. And actually, if we look at lots of stats, it's pretty worrying, because most people now rely on social media to get their information. And there is absolutely no guarantee that the information that you're going to get on the internet is correct. You could be accessing all sorts of information there. So how are employers responding to this? Well, if we look about 5 years ago, about 15% of organisations had a financial wellbeing strategy. That's now increased to about 36%. That was in 2021 after the pandemic. And I've got no reason to believe that that trend is going to do anything but continue on. I just want to touch on why financial education is particularly important this year. It's always important, but what is it that's happening that your employees are really going to need support with? And you've guessed it, it is the cost of living increases. I saw an article in The Independent recently, and that suggested that 7% of adults can't even afford to pay their essential bills at the moment, and they're resorting to food banks in order to eat. So what is it that's happened? Why is the cost of living going up? First of all, there is that increase to national insurance, and that's to provide more money for the NHS, to improve social care for the elderly. So national insurance has increased 1.25% on all earnings above 9,880. However, there has been a little bit of reprieve, because the Chancellor did announce in his spring budget that the threshold at which we're going to start paying national insurance is going to go up. That threshold is called the lower earnings limit. So from July, that's going to go up to be in line with the tax threshold to 12,570. Now, because of that change, the government does believe that 70% of people this year will be paying lower national insurance than last year. However, anybody earning sort of £34,000 and above are going to be paying more than they did last year. The next cost of living increase, of course, is council tax. Now, that always goes up in April, but the average Band D council tax, that's sort of the average house in the UK, is going to be going up by about 3.5%. So that's about £67 for the year. But that's entirely going to depend on the area that you live in. Some areas, I think it was Hammersmith, they don't have any increases. In others, council tax is going up 8 or 9%. And of course, the most newsworthy increase has been the energy bills. Now, the energy price cap rose by just over 50% at the beginning of April. So that has added about £700 a year to the typical household's bill. Now, that sharp rise is down to the record increase in global gas prices. And a lot of that is because we're not getting the supply because of the Ukraine war. And because of all of that, there are fears again that the energy price cap is going to rise again come October, and it could go up by another 40%. And as a result, we're seeing a sharp increase in fuel prices as well. It's funny, I was having a conversation with my daughter last night, and she's been driving for a year. And she said, "Mum, do you know it costs me £10 more now for a tank of petrol in my small little Fiesta than it did a year ago?" So it's just going to show how much these prices are going up by. On top of energy, we've got broadband and phone going up by 5 to 9%. And just for interest, stamps, they've gone up a whopping 12% this year. 95p for a first class stamp, 68p for a second class stamp. Most people are like, what? I remember when it was 24p or whatever it was just a few years ago. And because of all of these rising prices, that means inflation is sitting at around 7% at the moment. So that means anybody who's got money in a bank and only getting interest of about 0.5% is going to be losing real value on their money. They're not going to be able to buy as much with their money next year as they are this year if inflation continues as it is. So as you can see, it's really important for people to understand how to budget, how to take account of these increasing costs, how are they going to afford it, and really to give them the confidence to invest money for the medium to long term so that their money isn't being eroded by this high inflation that we're starting to see ourselves in. So how can you help your employees then? Well, the first thing I would say is that helping your employees to address their financial well-being doesn't have to be costly. This isn't a case of just throwing more products at them, adding stuff to your benefits program, giving pay rises. Because if you do that, there's actually no guarantee that that you're improving your employees' knowledge, and all that's going to do is drain company finances, and you're not going to get a return on that investment. Instead, it's about helping employees to really understand why financial well-being matters to them, and to inspire them to take action. So the first step actually is to understand your employees. What financial pressures and concerns are your employees facing? So the way to do that, many of our clients start by offering a 30-minute or a 1-hour live webinar, which addresses those money basics. And at the moment, that webinar, of course, is focused around managing the cost of living increases. So within that webinar, we'd explain that link between financial stress and health, and why identifying your money goals is so important, because you need to know what your money goals are to give you that motivation to control your money. If you're working towards saving, let's say, for a fantastic holiday in a year's time, you're far more likely to achieve those savings than if you don't have that end goal in sight. So we help people to think about their money goals and then identify simple action plans that they can put in place to achieve them through things like budgeting, reducing costs, and also really finding out, are there any state benefits that I'm entitled to as well? So for a lot of employees, their goals could be really simple. It could be they don't want to go overdrawn every month. It might be they're saving for a home. But if you can give them the tools and knowledge to know how to do that, that's going to be far more valuable from a retention and productivity perspective, to improve their financial well-being than just throwing more money at them. Now, at the end of every webinar, each attendee is then asked to complete a short survey that not only says, how did you find the session? Did you learn things? But also, what is it that you're interested about in the future? And lots of the webinars that we offer I've just listed here on this slide. But then we use those survey results to really inform and shape that ongoing financial education program to make sure that your employees are getting the information that they need. In some cases, it might mean that then leads to putting in additional benefit offerings, but only once as an employer you've managed to assess what is it that my employees actually need. A good quality financial wellbeing programs not only going to reduce the worries amongst your employees and raise morale and performance, but it's got that potential as well to increase trust between you and your employees. So it's a win-win situation for you and the people that work with you. Now, it's really important when designing a financial education program to ensure that it has been designed to fit the needs of the people in your organisation. It doesn't matter about their role, their religion, their gender, their belief, their working patterns. And I know that this is a big subject that's coming up all around diversity and inclusion. So how does that apply to financial wellbeing? Well, bringing courses online has definitely helped. All of our webinars are recorded, and that means that people can access that information at a time and in the surroundings that suit them. It also allows them to share that information if they want to with family members or friends if they wish to do so. However, it is really important, particularly now, to think about neurodiversity as well. And neurodiversity just describes the idea that actually as people, we all experience and interact with the world in many different ways, and we learn in different ways as well. But neurodiversity can be used as terms to describe people who might be dyslexic or autistic, for example. So I had a little look at a study that was done by the University of Edinburgh, and that suggested that 1 in 7 people in the UK are neurodiverse, and therefore it's absolutely essential that whatever education we're giving them, it caters to their needs. And there's a few recommendations when communicating with neurodiverse colleagues. So the first is just to make sure that we're using really straightforward language, because what is said is likely to be taken at face value. The next way is to really pace that information flow, to present facts and figures in a logical and an ordered sequence, because you want to try and avoid sensory overload. And that includes giving that person more time to process that information given, for example, through watching back the recordings as well. And also to be mindful of the sensitivities, such as changes to their routine. So all of our webinars follow these rules. We pride ourselves on using simple language that's easy to understand and really giving people those practical tips to take away at the end to action. But we also know, looking at the British Dyslexia Association as well, that things like line spacing, font and colour contrast can make a big difference to how dyslexic people are able to read information as well. So I was really pleased that when we did the research on this, we actually found that we had chosen a font that has proven to be beneficial, ensure that the webinar slides really do appeal and are easily accessible for dyslexic people. So where we provide the sessions, as I said, they're online, they're recorded. Employers can host these recordings for up to 3 months. And that just enables everybody to access that information when they're comfortable, when it suits them. And that isn't just for people who are neurodiverse, but people working part-time, shift patterns, people who've got diaries that can't accommodate taking time out, or people that just want to dictate their own routine and don't want to take time out in the day to watch it. Now, lastly, one of the other services that we've seen a massive increase in the demand for this year, and that is one-to-one guidance sessions, where employees can just book a 30-minute session, and this provides a confidential and safe space so that people can ask questions where they might not want to raise that in a group environment, particularly if it's something very specific to them around their money worries. So that's really it in a nutshell. It can be very simple. It doesn't need to cost a lot of money, but going back to sort of what Caroline was saying, it's about really understanding your employees, what they need, and then engaging them in a way that's going to work for them, and then reviewing what you're doing and continue. Often having small, manageable, bite-sized pieces of information is far better than one long webinar that's going to last for hours. So that is all I had to say this morning, Caroline. I'll pass back to you at that stage.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for brilliant insight, and definitely opened my eyes in terms of financial wellness and the importance of it for organisations. We hope that you've enjoyed this morning and that you found it really useful. Thank you so much for attending. We will be sending you a webinar link so you can watch the